Hey everybody, this is the Sliders Review. I'm here today to talk to you about The Lost Girls. This movie came out in 2022 and it was written, directed, and starred by, and I can't pronounce her name, it's an Italian actress named Livia De Polis. I can't say her name, but she's like the main actress who plays Wendy Darling Jr. in this. And is based off a book by Lori Fox of the same name. Now, okay, here's my thing. I remember when I saw the trailer for this and I was a bit confused because, like, there's Wendy, the original one, there's Jane, I knew about her from back in the day, and then there's Wendy Jr., and then there's her daughter Barry. And so I was starting to get a little bit confused, and then when I started watching the trailer, I'm like, oh wait, they're trying to depict Peter Pan as kind of like this person who preys on all the darling girls, like each generation that passes. And I'm all like, and it made him seem like a villain and stuff, and that, like, his unrequited like fantasy or love or whatever for, like, the darling girls. I think that's kind of interesting, you know what I'm saying? Like, he's obsessed with the darling generation and he keeps going back for each generation and taking like the little girls and stuff. So then made it seem like, he's this villain predatory type person. So I'm like, that's kind of like fascinating and stuff, you know what I'm saying? And so I was really intrigued by that, but part of the trailer kind of confused me. And so after a while, I completely forgot all about this movie until last night. I was on Hulu trying to watch everything I can before my thing expires, and I saw the movie. I'm all like, oh, hey, wait, that's that movie I saw when I saw the trailer and stuff. And so I'm all like, okay, fine, I'll watch it. See, I'm a huge Peter Pan fan. It started with the original Disney movie back in like the day, and that got me hooked on Peter Pan. Then I saw Peter Pan and the Pirates on Fox Kids. I've talked about that. Go watch that. I love Peter Pan and the Pirates. That was the most amazing Peter Pan adventure I ever seen. I saw Hook. I love Hook. Then the next Peter Pan thing I ever saw was, I forget what year it came out. It's either 2003 or 2009. It stars Jason Isaacs as Hook. And the movie is amazing. It is truly the fairy tale novel come to life and a real, true adaptation, like a faithful adaptation and stuff. And I love that movie. Nobody never talks about it. Then I saw the sci-fi remake. I forgot what year that came out in. Probably 2011, maybe. And it's a more realistic, logical, scientific take on Peter Pan and how he got there. And also shows Peter Pan used to be friends with Hook back in old English time. And Hook was a former English gentleman and blah, 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 blah. And they went to an alien planet. It's awesome. It's a great adaptation. I was worried at first, but it was amazing. One day I'm going to talk about that. Then after that, I haven't seen anything really about Peter Pan. I never saw the Hugh Jackman movie. Like, never, but I heard it did bad with the white tiger lily, which makes no sense because she's supposed to be indigenous. And then I saw a newer Peter Pan cartoon. It's kind of like CGI. I like the intro theme song, but I just can't get into it. Like, I just can't get into that cartoon. I think basically what it is like Peter Pan goes back and forth to the Darling house and takes them on adventures and bring them back home, then goes back and forth. I just can't get into it. And oh, I also saw that first Tinkerbell movie where the Disney movie just based solely on like Tinkerbell and stuff. So like other than that, I never really watched any other Peter Pan stuff, but I love Peter Pan. So when I heard about this, I'm like, cool, man, I gotta watch it. Oh, wait. Once Upon a Time, the TV show. In the third season, they introduced Peter Pan. And because in the second season, they introduced Hook as like a villain. And they kept leading us to like the whole, okay, Peter Pan is coming. So then he came in the third season. But that Peter Pan was a villain. And I don't like that version of Peter Pan. I don't like that version of Neverland. I don't like that version of Hook, because they turned him good. And that's when the show started to go downhill for me. Because they tried to make Peter Pan this scary, evil monster. But he's more of a prankster, and he just didn't come off the way they wanted him to on paper. And so he was Rumpelstiltskin's father and stuff in that. But I just didn't like that. But they made him seem more like a version of Peter Pan that we all know and love, and the Pied Piper who steals little boys and kids and stuff. And so when I saw the trailer for this, I started automatically thinking of Once Upon a Time, where Peter could be like a villain and stealing little kids and obsessed, like he's a stalker type thing. That's the impression me and other people got when we watched this trailer. And because I remember in the comment section, that's the impression people got too, that this Peter Pan is a stalker in The Lost Girls. I just now watched The Lost Girls. And then, well, actually, before I watched it, I saw the reviews. They were mixed to unfavorable reviews. And I'm just like, wait, what happened? So I watched it. I don't like it. I don't like it at all. This is probably one of the worst Peter Pan adaptations I've ever seen. And it's confusing. Like, it's very, very confusing. Like, I don't know if any of this crap really happened or not. Or is it just all in these women's head and they're kind of kooky in the head? And nothing against the person who wrote, directed, and starred in this, but that's never a good sign when a person does all three. They need to take either one or two roles. Normally, they should just take a writing and directing role and let somebody else do the acting. Her acting's fine. That's not the problem. It's just there's too much on her plate. And I don't know really what the book is truly about, because I can't really find nothing about it. I went to Amazon, and basically it just says that Wendy went to Neverland and met a quirky little boy, and then she grew up and met a quirky little man, and they're talking about the generations of the family and how they had to deal with the consequences of it and stuff like that. And a lot of people in the reviews love the book and think it's the best thing, but they're all female reviewers, so maybe this is more like a female thing. Maybe I'm missing the hidden message, but like, as a movie, it just doesn't make no sense to me. And the trailer is very misleading. Peter's not really predatory at all. He's not even stalkery. He just does what Peter Pan always does, like fly back and forth and pick up kids. And then when if they want to go back home, he sends them back home, and that's about it. And he forgets a lot, so he forgets the promise he makes and stuff. And so, like, when watching this movie, I literally had a hard time. I'm all like, does this deal with mental illness? Like, did any of this really happen? Like, and so I was just so confused. Then there's the whole mystery of Jane. What the heck happened to Jane? Um, the movie explains at the very end, but then you left thinking, well, did Peter kill her? But like, he couldn't have killed her as a child, because like, she had to come back home to live with her mother, the original Wendy, and then at some point give birth to Wendy Jr. and stuff. And so, but it's like, what the heck happened to her in her adult age? How come Wendy Jr. doesn't have her mother in her life? Why? So that's never explained to the very end. Then, why is Wendy Jr. father so obsessed with her and everything? Why doesn't he let her go to real school? Why does he homeschool her? Why, when she starts to go to real school, he's terrified and doesn't want to let go of his daughter? I'm all like, could he really be Peter grown up? But no, and it's kind of never really explained. Like, it's never explained why he's so obsessed with his daughter and stuff. Maybe the legend of Peter Pan was true or not. Now, when the movie did actually go to Neverland, it was actually pretty cool. They had purple flowers. The sky was purple. There's a flashback scene with Wendy as, like, not Wendy, but Jane, as she's kissing Peter and everything, and they're kissing on the ground in an underground house, and then it submerges into water, and then they're kissing underwater. But there's a lot of crap that is so confusing about this movie. Basically, it starts like this. It's the old Wendy, the original Wendy. We just call her we'll just call her old Wendy. Old Wendy is telling her granddaughter Wendy Jr. that when you're 13 or 14, there's gonna be a boy. He's gonna come looking for you, and he's gonna take you to a magical land, and you're gonna have adventures and blah 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 and stuff like that. And then she's all like, "Did this boy take my mom?" And then all of a sudden, old Wendy's kind of like heartbroken and devastated. He's like, "Oh my God, my dear Jane." And it's like, okay, well, what the world did Peter do to her? Well, we don't find out to the very end. And so this little girl, we see Wendy Jr. as a kid, and she's growing up with her father, and she's being homeschooled, and she wants to go to like real school, but he won't let her. And then she has a box with all this weird stuff in it that belonged, I guess, to her mother or her grandmother. And then at some point, we see her grandmother on top of a roof with her hands up in the air, and then it just fades away from that. And then her grandmother, like I said, is telling her the story, and her grandmother fell and hurt herself. And so she tried to fly, I guess, go back to Neverland, but couldn't because she just wants to really go back to that of Neverland. Then at some point in time, we see Wendy Jr. be 13 years old and still living. She's now finally going to go to school. Her dad is very adamant and does not want her to go to school, but she goes anyway. Then soon after that happens, Peter shows up. But Peter doesn't even look like a kid. He looks like a 20-year-old man. And he's taller than Wendy, who's 13 years old. And so I'm baffled. I'm just looking at this and I'm just kind of like, isn't he supposed to be a boy or at least a teenager? Why does he look like a 20-year-old man in college? So the casting is really off with this. But anyway, he takes her to Neverland. And she's all like, well, don't I need fairy dust? He's like, we have a new way of going. You just need a happy thought. And so they start flying to Neverland. And so Tinkerbell apparently does exist, but she never shows up in this movie. None of the Lost Boys ever show up in this movie. And so they fly to Neverland, and while they're there, they're in like orchard, a grass of like purple flowers and stuff like that. And she's having a good time, but Peter leaves her and goes off to do Peter crap, and we don't know what he does. And then next thing you know, she's in the flower bed or whatever you want to call it, and then she submerges into water, and then a hook grabs her. And then next thing you know, it cuts from that, and she's wearing completely different clothes, an elegant gown, and we see Captain Hook, played by Ian Glenn, and he's wearing a regular suit, like a modern day suit. Oh, by the way, this Wendy Jr. is from 1995, so. Oh, I forgot to even mention, Peter Pan's not even wearing his traditional outfit. He's just wearing a green t-shirt, green pants, green high-top sneakers. And I'm just kind of like, why is he wearing modern day clothes? It made sense for why he dressed the way he did in the sci-fi movie. And they explain all that, but it makes no sense as to why he's dressing in modern day clothes. But it's like, okay, whatever, this is a new adaptation, I'll just roll with it. But I don't understand why Hook is wearing a modern day suit. And so Hook tries to like kiss her and everything. I was like, whoa, man, you like 50 years old, and you trying to kiss a 13-year-old girl? Like, what the world? And so why is Hook trying to like make out with Wendy? Then she looks into like a mirror, and she sees an older woman. She assumes it's her mother. Then she sees Peter Pan wearing a somewhat more traditional outfit. It's still green leather pants and a shirt, but the shirt looked like more medieval times, and you tie it up in the front. And then next thing you know, she is back home in her bed, and she wonders if she even dreamt this or if it's the real thing. But then she looks under her pillow, and there is like, a peach. And when Peter came to see her, he gave her a peach. So therefore it really did happen. Either it really happened, or she went downstairs, got a peach, put it underneath her pillow, and then just forgot she did it. And so I'm just left baffled. I'm like, did this really happen or not? Or is she just hallucinating? And I wanted to see more Neverland, because that was the most interesting thing in the entire movie so far. Also, what's the deal with like Hook? I don't get that. So it's kind of like a mystery. Well, then the movie cuts to 4 years. She's 17 now, but played by the same actress who played the 13-year-old version. So it just the age wise just doesn't look right because she looks absolutely the same. And so like now she's 17 years old and she's pissed. Like she's fuming, pissed off because year after year after she went to when she went to Neverland back in when she was 13, Peter hasn't come back for her and he broke his promise. And so she's really, really, really pissed off. So every night she looks out the window waiting for him and everything. And so like now she's 17 and she's angry, pissed off, fuming, mad. And see the reason why he broke his promise, because you know how Peter Pan legend is, he forgets a lot and stuff. And so the next thing you know, it cuts to that, and now she's an adult. And she's an adult, and she just graduated from college, and she doesn't even look like she's in her 20s. She looks like she's in her 30s and stuff. And then she meets a man, and then he's kind of has this quirky personality, and she starts to fall for him. But in a way, these two, they date for the longest time, and so even though she's with him, her new boyfriend or whatever, she still learns she yearns for like Peter. She can't get Peter out her mind. She is obsessed with Peter. And that time she spent in Neverland. So maybe she really did go to Neverland. How long did she stay? Don't know really, because it's never explained. The movie paces by so fast. And so then at some point she starts to see Hook again and just around town. And it's kind of confusing. Is he really the real Hook, or is she imagining this? So then she starts talking to her husband and she's all like, there's something she needs to tell him. And she starts throwing up. So I'm like, okay, she must be pregnant. This must be explain the child I saw in the trailer. And so like, but she doesn't even say, hey, I'm pregnant. But instead she starts talking about, when I was a teenage girl, I went to Neverland. I met Peter Pan, and I met some pirates, and I met some lost boys, and blah, 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 blah. And so he thinks she's crazy. And then so she gets mad at him for like, just starts cussing him and stuff. And I'm just like, whoa, Wendy, calm your behind down. Because you don't want to sound like you're kind of nuts and everything. Well, then it cuts from that. And now it's her wedding day and she's pregnant, and her father, who is still alive, he's just kind of annoyed by like her husband, because you know how it is, daddy little girl got taken away from her. Grandma original Wendy is there and all this other crap, and I forget, at some point she probably tells your child's gonna have to go off to Neverland too and meet herself some Peter and blah blah blah. And so we see her cuts from that, and now her daughter's a little bit older. She's about 8 or so, or 10. And Wendy is kind of acting a little cuckoo in the head and stuff. She's still talking about Neverland and missing Peter, and then talking about how she's not happy and stuff like that. And she's jealous that her husband, pays, I guess, more attention to like her daughter than her. And so at some point in time, I don't know what happens, but the grandfather, Wendy Jr.'s dad, he seems very obsessed with that Wendy Jr.'s daughter named Barry. I don't know why she named her Barry, but she named her Barry. But the grandfather seems to be obsessed with that of Barry. So then I start to think again, well, could he really be Peter? Like, all grown up? Because here's the thing about the story of Peter Pan is that in the second novel, see, here's the thing about the story. Okay, so in the first novel, Wendy and the Darling, the brothers, they go to Neverland. They hang out for a while, but then they realize they need to go back home. They need their real mother and stuff. And so, and they need a real father. So Peter lets them go back. But then the Lost Boys wants to go back too. But the Lost Boys been there so long that their real parents are either dead or they forgot who their parents are. So they go and live with the Darling family, and they all grow up. Then something happens, and Tinkerbell comes back, and she's all like, Peter needs your help and everything. So, but they're all grown up. There's no way they can go back as like, you can only go to Neverland as a kid, unless you're a pirate or the Native Americans. So they do some magical dust type crap and some memories, this and that, and they all transform back into kids. And then John, I think, turns into like a woman, I think. Or one of them turns into like a woman. And so they all go back to Neverland. So I'm like, okay, could this really be Peter? Could he really um be an adult, but then turns back into like a teenage boy, and then vice versa? Like, because he's so obsessed with the Darling family, could that really be him? So I'm starting to think that, you know what I'm saying? Because of the way the trailer made him seem so stalker predator Tory and stuff. Also, I forgot to mention that when Wendy Jr. was 13, she told Peter, well, I don't know if you would want me to go to Neverland because, I don't know how to do no house cleaning. I don't cook, and I'm pretty independent, and I like to write poems. And it's because Peter wants like a mother figure and wants somebody to do his cooking and cleaning and stuff. And so that was kind of interesting that she pointed out, but she still went anyway. So in a way, back in modern day, I forget what year it is, but it's in the 2000s now. And Wendy Jr., like I said, is grown up. Her child's about 10, and so something happens, and she takes her mother poem book or whatever, or book she wrote, and she burns it outside. And then her mother's really pissed about that. Why did she burn her book? Don't know. It's never explained. Cut from that. Now, Barry is a little bit older. She's about 14, 15 years old, something like that. And she has a very strained relationship with her mother. She's very independent. She's very much a feminist. She thinks her mother is cuckoo for believing in a little boy who would take her off to like Neverland. And she tells her mom like, oh, you're pissed at me because I don't believe in your bull crap story. And so she leaves with her two friends and stuff. And the dad just sits there eating and just doesn't even say nothing. He's just like, whatever. Because the dad he does not even believe in Peter Pan and thinks his wife is a little cuckoo. And so the mom is upset that her daughter won't believe in, Neverland and like all this other crap and like, crap like that. And so then it happens. Peter comes to visit that of Barry. And he's like, yo, I'm here to take you and everything. But they're reading comic books. And it's a comic book with a female hero. And Peter does not like that. He's all like, I don't believe in this. And he's all like, there are no heroes. There's only Peter Pan. And so this is what doesn't make no sense about Barry. She's very much a feminist and independent. But she's all like, look, I'm ready to leave and everything. She packed her bag. Like, she literally had her bags packed. And he's kind of impressed because this has never happened before. And so, because, normally he just takes them and, they kind of expect him. But she's all like, I'm ready to leave the real world. And anything has to be better than this. But then she tells Peter Pan, like, you suck and everything. Like, you have ruined my entire family. Because of you, my mother keeps obsessing about you and won't stop talking about you. My grandmother has been in and out of mental wards and everything because she won't stop talking about you and everything like that. And they can't get enough of you. But then I'm thinking to myself, okay, if he has poisoned the family line by having them obsessed about him, why in the world does she want to go? But that don't make no sense. So anyway, she's like, all right, give me some fairy dust and it's time to go. He's like, all you need is like a happy memory and everything. So she has a happy memory. And then next thing you know, her mom wakes up in the middle of the night. She goes into her daughter's room and sees the window open. And okay, my daughter must have went to Neverland. She looks outside the window. Oh no, her daughter Barry is on the pavement ground and there's blood. What happened? Well, Barry wakes up in the hospital and everything, and she tells her mother in a very long speech, a monologue, talking about how I had that happy memory. But then she closed her eyes and she saw the dots and blah, blah, blah. And then all of a sudden, she started having sadness in her heart and blah 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 blah. And then all she knew, she woke up on the ground in a nightmare. So basically she had her happy memory, she flew out the window and she fell on the ground because she ain't as happy as she thought. And that's why I started thinking, okay, because yeah, if she's such a feminist and hates Neverland and hates Peter and all what he did to her family, why in the world would she want to fly? So then they talked to the grandmother, and the grandmother's all like, the time I used to have in like Neverland and blah 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 and stuff like that. Well, then it cuts from that, and all of a sudden now original Wendy is dead and they're at the funeral, and Wendy Jr. Says a nice lovely speech. And then she's with her family, her daughter's on crutches, and then she sees an older woman who looks like that woman in the mirror. Oh, wait, I completely forgot about this other part that confused me. Before I get to this, at some point in time, when Barry was in the hospital and the dad stayed there, Wendy Jr. went back home and Hook is in her house. And Hook is trying to seduce her and kiss her against her will. He literally has her pinned up against the wall, making out with her. Then it cuts from that and she's on a boat, the pirate boat. And there's a little boy and he's all like, this is K-rap, this is pirate rap and everything. And we hear rap music. I'm just like, what the world? And then Hook shows up and he's all like, I'll be ready to go back to Neverland, blah, 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 blah. But then it keeps cutting from this and that. And we see her in her daughter's room, just literally staring into nothingness. And so I'm all like, well, hold up. Is she having a hallucination or is this really real? What is the deal? Are they really going to Neverland or are they not? The movie never really makes no true explanation of that. Then back to the present day, original Wendy's dead, and then Wendy Jr. sees an older woman looks like her mama, so she runs after her, and now they're in the airport, and she's all like, why did you abandon our family? So then this really is the real Jane, like, Jane from like the novels, who was the daughter of the original Wendy and all this other crap. And she pretty much tells her how, like, she didn't think she could cope with the real world as an adult and everything. And she tells the story of when Peter came back from for her mother and stuff. Now this is ripped out of like the books, and they did this in that one 2003 or 9 movie in a deleted scene. It's a very beautiful scene. It's Peter, he's back, still looking like a teenage grown man. And and he came back for Wendy. He's all like, Wendy, I have finally came back for you, even though I forgot about you, but I finally come back for you. And so Wendy original's all like, Peter, I can't go to Neverland with you no more. I can no longer fly. And he's all like, why not? You're the same as you always. He's like, look, I'm gonna turn on the lights and don't get freaked out by what you see. He's all like, well, hold up now. I don't want to see this. Don't you turn on that light. But she turns it on anyway. He's like, Wendy, you grew up. You got old. She's like, yes, Peter. And you see that little girl in the bed? That's my daughter. Oh, Pan ain't having that. He's all like, you broke your promise. You grew up and you said you was never going to grow up. She's like, well, you said you going to come back for me and you never came back for me. So then he gets ready to punch Wendy Jr. and everything. Now, in the other movie I saw, it's darker than that. He pulls out his knife ready to stab Wendy Jr. and stuff. And then she's all like, and then so like in the movie I saw, he takes Wendy Jr. and no, he takes Jane, not Wendy Jr. and Jane. He takes Wendy Jane. Now I can't talk. He takes Jane and they go off to Neverland. In the other movie I saw, now in this movie, he just talks about like, oh, when she's of age, I'll comfort her and everything, and blah 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 blah. And so then her mother. So Wendy Jr. and Jane, the mother, they're talking and they're reminiscing and they're making up for lost time. And then she introduces Jane to Barry, and Barry's all like, oh wow, grandmother does exist and blah blah blah, and it basically just ends. And I'm just kind of like, what the heck did I just watch? Is this some type of like psychological mental illness like movie or something? Or did this really happen? Or like, what the world happened in this freaking movie? I am so baffled and confused. Now I see why it got unfavorable reviews, because this movie makes no sense. The trailer makes you think Peter Pan's a stalker and constantly goes back for the Wendy darling kids, which he does in each generation, but they made it seem more predatory and stuff. They made it seem like he's obsessed, and he just can't live without the darling women. But then you leave yourself asking yourself, is Peter Pan real or not? What is up with the hallucination of Hook and him always trying to get with her and stuff? I don't get that, because the movie never really explains if that was real or hallucination. And also, why did he come for adult Wendy? And if so, why did they keep flashing back to her bedroom or room? So it must have been a hallucination. And so I'm left just like baffled. I have no idea what is real, what is not. If that is the purpose of this movie, then you succeeded, because you confused the Crimson Waves out of me. But I have no idea what happened. Now, this could be a take on like, okay, if Peter Pan is real and if they really went to Neverland and had a great time and they obsessed about him, it's kind of like obsessing over a lost lover you can't have no more. And so you go and you find the next person who acts like that. And that's just why the darling women, they keep going after men with quirky personalities and they fall in love with them. And then, because they trying to emulate what they had with Peter and stuff. Okay, fine, I could buy that, but make that make sense in the movie. Let me actually know that's what happened. Don't make me think that's what happened, and I have no idea what happened because I really don't even know if they really went to Neverland or not. For all I know, it could just be a fairy tale story that they passed to, a typical fairy tale story that they passed to like a kid, and the kid uses their imagination and believes it's all real and dream about it. But like I said before, that really what it could be. So I don't know if Peter Pan and Neverland and Hook are real, or it's just a figment of some little kid's imagination because they got told that fairy tale story at like a young age and really believe that. You know what I'm saying? So the movie is very, very, very confusing and stuff. And it's paced so weird because it's constantly bopping around from time periods. You know, when you be in the modern day, it'll go back to like a flashback. And so you just kind of like, what is this about? And then we see like the flashback of Jane when she's a teenager talking about what happened when she was in Neverland. And I'm just like, none of this makes any freaking sense. And it doesn't make no sense as to why the Peter decides to dress like a modern day person and why Hook dresses like a modern day person. Are they just like going back in and out of like every 100 years and getting some clothes and stuff? Like, what is the deal? And where is Tinkerbell? Where are the Lost Boys? Where are the pirates? That pirate boat they had in the movie looked terrible. They didn't even show the whole boat. They just showed like the side of it, and it's red and it's terrible looking. It looks like a steamboat that you would just like, you be out catching some fish and everything. Not to mention the CGI on the flying is terrible in this movie. It's 2022 and it's some of the worst CGI I've ever seen in a movie. Like, the movie didn't even have that much special. The only good special effects is when they're on the ground, submerged in the water, and then, stuff like that. There are no mermaids, there are no indigenous people, there's none of that. So it leads me to believe, is any of this even real? Is this really even the Peter Pan story? Now, the whole prospect of, let's say Peter Pan is real, right? And you do go to Neverland and you have an amazing time. And for whatever reason, you decide to go back into the real world because you miss your parents. You gotta stop and think about that. Like, the aspect of showing the consequences of leaving Neverland, leaving a world that's adventurous, now having to grow up and make something of yourself, that's pretty scary and stuff. So I've always wanted to know, what is the aftermath of going to Neverland and coming back and stuff, because we saw in Hook, Peter missed Wendy so much that, like, he went to the real world and forgot who he was, and we saw the aftermath of that, and then that was kind of interesting. But we never see the aftermath of like any of the Darling kids. I'm talking about the original ones. John, whatever his little brother name is, and Wendy. We never really see what the aftermath of, like, what that has on a person's mind. Do they go back living their natural life? Do they forget? Like, what happens? You know what I'm saying? So that's something the movie could have really explored in a very fascinating kind of way. Because when you do start to tell people, hey, I went to Neverland and blah, 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 they're going to think you're crazy and put you in a mental ward because that's a fairy tale that you're talking about. And so that aspect could be really interesting. And it would have been nice to see that with the original Wendy going in and out of mental wards instead of her just trying to fly and fall down. But we get told she's been in and out of mental wards. And, and it's just kind of like, this movie could have been so much different if they would have, like, took a darker route and show, like, the real mental illness and let people know straight up that, hey, this is a mental illness movie or a movie you yearn to go back to, like, your childhood. If they would have said that from the get-go, people would have been like, okay, fine. This, because people assume this was a fantasy movie where Peter Pan is literally stalking like a family. But if they would have said, hey, this is straight up about mental illness and, you know, the ramifications of going to like a fairy tale world and coming back, then people would have been more understanding of that. Now, if they would have went the darker route and shown that Peter Pan is a stalker and he's obsessed with the Darling family and he'll do anything it takes to get them and the family is trying their best to fight against him, that would have been an even more amazing movie, but they didn't even go that route. And so there's so many routes they could have went, but like, you know, they didn't, and they went with this, and apparently this is a good book, but I don't see the point. I don't see how this is a good book and everything, because I'm just baffled by that of the movie and stuff. Maybe when you read, you use your own imagination, it's a whole lot better. Sometimes they say you should read the book and then watch the movie, but sometimes if you watch the movie, it's better than the book. But in this case, in my opinion, it's just not. And I'm just like, I don't know if they even went to Neverland or not. And it just, the whole Hook thing is what really gets me. I'm really starting to believe they never went to Neverland. They just imagined the entire thing. Alrighty, well, I'll talk to y'all later. Bye.